This is breaking news, and what I am about to tell you may represent the most shocking development in modern naval warfare. Reports are now emerging that the USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the most powerful aircraft carriers in the entire United States Navy, has been struck during active combat operations. For decades, American aircraft carriers have been considered virtually untouchable, the ultimate symbols of U.S. military dominance capable of projecting power anywhere on the planet. The fact that one of these massive warships has reportedly been hit is sending shockwaves through defense communities, government agencies, and military command centers around the world right now. If you want to stay ahead of developments like this that are reshaping global security in real time, hit subscribe immediately because this situation is evolving fast and what comes next could change everything. Let me put into perspective exactly why this matters so much. An aircraft carrier is not just another warship sailing through the ocean. It is essentially a floating military base, a mobile city carrying nearly 5,000 sailors, pilots, engineers, and technicians who live and work together in some of the most demanding conditions imaginable. Fighter jets launched directly from its deck carry out missions hundreds or even thousands of kilometers away and return to the ship afterward. Surveillance aircraft monitor vast stretches of ocean and airspace, while helicopters conduct anti-submarine operations and search and rescue missions. When you combine all of that with the powerful escort fleet surrounding it, a carrier strike group becomes one of the most formidable military tools ever created, capable of shaping events far from American shores. The United States operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world's navies combined. That number alone tells you how central these ships are to American military strategy. When tensions rise anywhere on the globe, it is almost always a carrier strike group that arrives first to demonstrate American commitment and readiness. When a U.S. carrier enters a contested region, it sends an unmistakable signal that Washington is prepared to act. For allied nations, the arrival of a carrier group represents powerful reassurance and protection. For potential adversaries, it serves as a stark reminder of the overwhelming military capability the United States can bring to bear. This is precisely why the reports about the USS Abraham Lincoln are so extraordinary. American supercarriers have not been successfully struck in combat since the end of World War II. For over 70 years, these ships have sailed into some of the most dangerous regions on the planet while remaining remarkably secure. Their massive size, advanced radar networks, escort warships, and combat aircraft created a defensive shield that many believed made them nearly impossible to hit. The very possibility that a carrier has now been successfully targeted is forcing military analysts everywhere to re-examine assumptions that have defined naval strategy for generations. Now let me walk you through the defense systems that were supposed to prevent exactly this from happening, because understanding what these ships carry is critical to grasping how significant this strike truly is. A carrier strike group operates with multiple layers of protection designed to intercept threats long before they reach the carrier itself. Radar systems scan hundreds of kilometers of airspace for incoming missiles or aircraft. Escort destroyers and cruisers carry powerful interceptor missiles capable of destroying threats at long range. Fighter jets patrol the skies above the fleet, ready to engage hostile aircraft before they can approach. Closer to the carrier, additional defensive systems stand ready, including short-range missiles, electronic warfare systems, and rapid-fire cannons capable of destroying incoming projectiles in the final seconds before impact. Together, these systems form one of the most advanced defensive networks ever created for naval warfare. For decades, this layered shield reinforced the belief that aircraft carriers were extremely difficult, if not impossible, to hit in combat. But the nature of modern warfare is evolving at a pace that is outrunning those assumptions. According to early reports, the strike against the USS Abraham Lincoln may have involved a coordinated multi-directional assault rather than a single missile or drone. This is precisely the scenario naval planners have feared for years. Modern military strategies increasingly involve launching large numbers of threats simultaneously from multiple directions in what is known as a saturation attack. The goal is brutally simple: overwhelm defensive systems by forcing them to respond to too many incoming targets at once. Ballistic missiles reportedly approached from high altitude at extreme speeds, forcing the carrier group's defenses to engage rapidly descending targets. At the same time, drones flying at lower altitudes may have approached from different directions, attempting to exploit weaknesses in radar coverage or defensive coordination. Radar operators must track multiple fast-moving threats simultaneously. Missile interceptors are launched in rapid succession. Commanders must make split-second decisions about which threats to prioritize. If the volume of incoming weapons becomes too large, even momentary gaps can appear in the defensive shield, and those gaps, lasting perhaps only seconds, can provide just enough opportunity for an attack to succeed. Hypersonic and high-speed ballistic missiles compound this challenge enormously. They travel so fast that defensive systems have almost no time to react. Even when radar detects the threat early, commanders may have only seconds to decide and launch interceptors. Drones introduce an entirely different dimension of threat. Unlike expensive missiles, drones can be produced cheaply in enormous numbers and launched in coordinated swarms. Individually, they may not carry devastating payloads, but together they create confusion, distract defensive systems, and probe for vulnerabilities across the fleet's protective shield. This combination of fast missiles and numerous drones represents an entirely new battlefield environment that naval forces have never confronted at this scale in actual combat. The human element cannot be overlooked in any of this. When a warship of this size is struck, the situation becomes intensely dangerous within seconds. Specialized damage control teams immediately begin responding to fires, flooding, explosions, and structural damage under live combat conditions. These sailors are trained through countless drills to know exactly what to do when disaster strikes. They work to contain damage and prevent it from spreading to critical sections of the ship. Naval history has repeatedly demonstrated that the survival of vessels often depends entirely on the courage and skill of these crews. Ships that suffered catastrophic hits have stayed afloat because their sailors fought with extraordinary determination to contain fires, pump out water, and stabilize damaged compartments. That same spirit defines the nearly 5,000 personnel aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln who would have responded immediately to protect their ship and each other. The geopolitical implications of this reported strike extend far beyond a single military incident. Countries like China have invested billions in developing weapons specifically designed to target large naval vessels. These so-called carrier killer missiles are capable of traveling enormous distances and striking ships at sea with remarkable precision. If a real-world example now exists demonstrating that an aircraft carrier can be successfully targeted, it fundamentally changes how every military planner on the planet calculates the balance between offense and defense in naval combat. Russia and every other major military power is undoubtedly examining every detail of this situation, from the weapons used to the effectiveness of defensive systems, and that analysis will shape military planning and weapons development for years to come. Allied nations that depend on American security guarantees are watching with particular intensity. For decades, the presence of U.S. carrier strike groups provided reassurance that Washington could respond quickly to threats and stand behind its partners. If the perception of carrier invulnerability begins to weaken, some countries may fundamentally reconsider how they structure their own defense strategies, potentially investing more heavily in missile defenses, drone technologies, or alternative military capabilities that do not depend on American naval protection. In Washington, extremely difficult strategic questions are now on the table. When a major military asset like an aircraft carrier is targeted, the response requires careful calibration. One path involves escalating military operations to reassert deterrence and demonstrate that attacks on American warships carry devastating consequences. Another path focuses on preventing the situation from expanding into a broader regional conflict that could draw in additional nations and destabilize global security. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels are almost certainly active right now, with governments exploring possibilities for de-escalation or arrangements that could prevent further violence before the situation spirals beyond control. Military strategists are already debating how naval forces must adapt to this new reality. Some advocate for directed energy weapons like high-powered lasers that could engage multiple drones or missiles rapidly without requiring physical ammunition. Others propose distributing military capabilities across larger numbers of smaller vessels and unmanned platforms rather than concentrating power in a few massive ships, a concept known as distributed maritime operations designed to deny adversaries a single high-value target. However, aircraft carriers are not going to disappear from the world's oceans anytime soon. Their ability to launch dozens of aircraft and maintain continuous air operations far from land remains a strategic advantage that no other platform can replicate. Future naval strategies will likely focus on integrating carriers into broader networks of sensors, drones, artificial intelligence, and advanced electronic warfare systems designed to dramatically enhance their survivability in this new threat environment. Throughout history, dramatic events like this have forced nations to fundamentally reconsider how wars are fought. The destruction of battleships during World War II demonstrated the rising power of aircraft. Later conflicts proved the importance of submarines, precision missiles, and electronic warfare. Each development reshaped military doctrine and compelled leaders to adapt. If these reports are confirmed, this incident may mark another pivotal moment where warfare evolves and the balance between offensive innovation and defensive adaptation shifts in ways that reshape global security for decades. The questions that once seemed purely theoretical are now being debated with life and death urgency. Can large warships continue operating safely in environments saturated with missiles and drones? How must defensive systems evolve? What balance should be struck between traditional naval power and emerging technologies? The answers will define the future of conflict at sea and the future of military power itself. The world is watching and waiting for clarity, but one thing is already certain. The conversation about the future of naval warfare has permanently changed, and the lessons from what happened to the USS Abraham Lincoln will influence military strategy, defense spending, and global security calculations for generations to come.